All right. Good morning. Gute Woche, Shavua Tov. So our learning, as always, is dedicated to the refuah shlema of those who need a refuah. So who do we have? Anybody?
Baruch Benjamin ben Rachel Blima, Yehudis Golda bas Elisa Hana, Hava Daniela bas Naomi Hana, Yosef Yitzhak ben Lior, and Shoshana bas Hana.
Refuah shlema b'korah. Any others? Okay. So let's begin with Hayom Yom for today.
Sorry, can we include all the soldiers that need healing, and for the families in Eretz Israel that also need healing from a lot of loss?
You can include anyone you want. Yes, refuah shlema to all of them. 10-7. The Alter Rebbe responded to an individual in Yechidus as follows. He said, we don't know what the question was, but he said, the Jewish people are called neros, lamps or lanterns. A lamp or lantern comprises a vessel, holy oil, the wick, yes, the oil itself, and the flame. But, thank you very much, but you're going to need a fire. You need to strike the match. You have to kindle the flame. And then it sheds light. So what's the match? Where's the kindling? Where's the spark going to come from? So he said to this person, you have a good laptop. Everything's together. Your oil, your wick, your lantern. But you lack the igniter. What's the igniter? What will give the spark? By sharply striking the stone of the animal soul, a spark of fire flies out that ignites the godly fire. So on this one can say a mashal. He uses the stone of the animal soul. There are, in Chassidus, it brings various levels of fire, the most hidden of which is the fire in the flintstone. When that's the fire that you don't see at all until you strike it. And then when you strike it, you take the stone and you strike it like that. That's how you ignite a spark. Similarly with your animal soul, there is a deep, deep fire, deep, deep power in the animal soul. And by so-called striking it, aligning it, bringing it to life to serve what it itself really wants to serve, the animal soul, that will spark the fire of flame of your lantern. Ne'er mitzvah b'Torah or. A lantern is a mitzvah and Torah is the light. That's the word to live by today, at least from the Yom Yom. Let's see how it ties in with, or if it ties in with this. Lessons in Tanya, we're beginning a new chapter in Shar Yichud Yamuna, chapter 3. And in Likutei Morim, yes, it's on page Ayin Ches. So I got just two statements. I'm trying to be brief here. We learned the introduction to Shar Yichud Yamuna. Shar Yichud Yamuna is the gate of unity and faith. And we learned the introduction, which is Hanuch Lenar Al Pi Darkoi. That's the title of it. It means to guide the child according to his ways. And his ways, the Alter Rebbe told us at the very end of Shar Yichud Yamuna, is that every Jew has a natural love and a natural fear or awe for Hashem built within it. And the guiding the child according to his ways, means to bring out that natural love and fear, natural love and awe, and cultivate the capacity of emunah in Hashem, and emunah particularly in the singular, the oneness of Hashem, that ein od milvado, there is nothing beside him. And this is a natural state, inborn state of the spiritual DNA, so to speak, within each and every one of us. And our job as educators is to guide, Hanuch means, to guide the person to him or herself, to the real him or herself. And that him or herself is Amunas Hashem. And therefore, that became, or is the introduction to Shar HaYichud Ve'emunah, which speaks about, it's the gateway to, literally the gateway to the unity and to the unity in Amunas Hashem. Okay, and in the first parak, we spoke about the unity of Hashem, bringing to the table the mashal of speech. Speech originates in a single source, in a person, in the mind of a person. It's flavored by the midos of a person, right? I mean, what you're thinking about is going to be expressed in a particular way, depending on how you feel about it, or what feeling you want to convey about it. And the ultimate outcome, however, is going to be the letters in which you actually deliver the communication. And those letters are the analogy, or the energetics, the energies of Hashem, which come out and create the infinite multiplicity and diversity of creation. And the point that we're going to move on with here is that just as a person, in order to speak, has to have a driving force of breath, thought, midos, and breath behind those letters, and if a person were to stop that outward pouring of breath, the letters would stop. So similarly, Hashem has to be and is entirely and always inside and activating creation. And he learns that from a pasuk, a drach, and a pasuk, Le'olam Hashem devorach nisa b'shamayim, forever Hashem, your words stand in the heaven. And similarly, if Hashem were so to speak, stop speaking, all of the worlds as we know them, would cease to exist. So, with all that, we start Perek Gimel. After these words, which I just said, I'll paraphrase the Alter Rebbe's words, and this truth, which we've just spoken. So after that, Kol Amaskil al Dover, anyone who understands anything, Yovin la Ashura, will understand clearly, how it is, Shekol Nivra V'yesh, every created thing, and everything which has a sense of being something, that's called a yesh, having a sense of being something, is in truth considered like absolutely nothing in relation to the koyach hapoel, the power of bringing things into existence, v'ruach piv, and the breath of his mouth, shebanifel, which is in that actualized entity, hamahaba oisetomid, which brings it into being continually, and brings it forth me'ayin mamish lo yesh, from nothing to something. And that's, embedded in there is the mashal of speech. There has to be the power of breath being articulated through the 5 articulated powers of the mouth, shaped differently and coming out in combinations of letters, in order for us to communicate to the outside world. And God's communication to the outside world, or his investment in what is called outside of him, stuff, yesh, is analogous to that. There has to be the continual investment of the power of activation in the thing activated. That's called koyach hapoel b'nifol, the power of activation in the thing activated. Umasha kol nivra nifol, and that which every created thing and every activated thing, nira lanu leyesh, appears to us as a yesh, as a something, umamasha, and something tangible, that which every single thing appears to us to be something, independent, something you can get your arms around, something you can understand, something which is defined in space and time. Zeho machmas, this is because because we don't see with our fleshly eyes, es koyach Hashem b'ruach piv, We don't Shabanivra. We don't see the power of Hashem and the breath and the breath from His mouth, which is in that creation. We don't see that. We see the yeshusness of the creation and not the ayinness of the creation. But again, if there weren't ayin in the yesh would have no existence at all. Avol, however, ilu nitna rashus la'ayin lirois. If permission were given to the eye to see, right? Open up our eyes. If we could really open up our eyes, and here he means the physical eyes, we are asked to, begged to, commanded to open up our eyes in terms of open up our spiritual eyes and see figuratively, in quotation marks, see the spirit within the flesh. But if we could actually see it with our physical eyes, and if we were able to actually grasp the life force and the spirituality which is in each and every creature and which flows through it, from the articulated powers of the mouth of Hashem, from that which goes out from the mouth of Hashem, V'ruach piv, and the breath of His mouth. If we were able to see that, then the physicality of the thing, of the creation, and its coarseness and its mamoshishness, it's that I can actually touch it, that would disappear continually. If we could see the ayin, the yesh would disappear. When we see the yesh, the ayin disappears, right? That's why it's called nothing, because it's not something graspable by definition. And if you could grasp the ayin, then the singularity, the divisiveness, the separation that exists in time and place would cease to exist. He who bottled the Metzias, because that substantiality of the thing would become not nullified in its existence mamish, in relationship to the life force and the spirituality of the thing. Since because without the ruchnius, the thing would disappear into absolutely no thing again. As it was at the beginning of creation, as it was before the creation, the days of creation, mamish. And the spirituality which flows to this thing, Hashem, from here's the mushal again, from the articulated powers of Hashem's mouth, V'ruach piv, in the breath of His mouth. That's what brings that thing into existence continually from absolutely nothing. And it brings it from the ayin to a yesh, and it's what's enlivening it. And if so, if so, there is absolutely nothing else besides Him in truth. That's today's Shahar Yichud B'Ha'amuna. Any questions? Obvious? This is, by the way,
hardly obvious.
Well, let me just, hardly obvious. One thing that's helped for me to make it obvious, you could use the Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared. If you just look at it, E, energy, equals matter times the speed of light. Energy and matter are interchangeable. They're just different forms of something. So when you see, if we could see for instance, we postulate, at least for the last 100 years, that there are physical particles called atoms, and atoms are substrated into protons, neutrons, and electrons. At least that's the science I learned when I grew up. But in truth, in addition to that, if you know and you've seen an atom or diagram of an atom, most of it's empty space. Yet everything appears solid, right? This table is solid, though everything is empty space, mostly empty space. Why is that? Because there's a continuity, a transformation from energy to matter, and they're what's the word? Convertible. You can convert energy into matter and matter into energy. That's the equation. Energy equals a function of matter, or matter is a function of energy. And if you turn the matter into energy, then the matter of the thing disappears. And if you blind yourself to the energy in the matter, which is what we're doing here when we look at a table, we don't see any energy, we just see a solid thing, then the matter becomes predominant. And so they work together and contradict each other. If there weren't any chayas in the matter would have no existence, right? But if you were looking at the energy, then the perception of matter would disappear.
Excuse me. My phone fell, so I'm not sure. Were you answering a question just now?
No, I mean, the question started, I kind of interrupted the question. I was just saying sort of an analogy that works for me in terms of, so I asked the question, does anyone have any questions? And I think Baju said, yeah. So I just wanted to put on the table that this intercontrovertibility, if that's the word, between energy and matter is in front of us in this famous equation of Einstein, E equals mc squared. Matter and energy are interchangeable. And if you take the perspective of looking at the energy, the matter disappears. And if you take this perspective looking at the matter, the energy disappears. That's all. I thought it might be clarifying. Go ahead.
Is that referring to the phrase that you read, that if the eye were permitted to see it, the life force and spirituality in every created being flowing from it, it would suddenly, you wouldn't see it?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is exactly the point.
So that means, I mean, when I read that, I thought to myself that it meant that it suddenly is ceasing.
No, it's not ceasing. It can't cease. The energy, if the energy in the thing ceases, the thing ceases to exist as matter. The energy can keep flowing, right? One doesn't have eyes to see spirituality. We have sensors right now to experience it, spiritual things, but we don't see it. It's not, because seeing is a function of materiality, nervous system, and et cetera, and Ruchnius is not a function of materiality. So if all we had were the effusion of the ayin, then the perception, then the reality of matter would completely disappear. And if we had only the perception of matter, which is what we have pretty much, what we really perceive with our active perception sense, assembly of things which we perceive with our mind, our eyes, our touch, etc., is matter. And this is what I'm about to say is pretty important. The reason that we are moved by certain things and have a sense of the spirit within the flesh is because we are built with a soul which has emunah, which reaches into the ayin and has a sense that underlying everything is this invisible force. I mean, another simple analogy, and I'll let you guys talk, is electricity. We see the light bulb shine. We don't see the electrical forces in it. But we know it's there. If the electricity were to stop in the house, then my light bulb would go out. I know that. So I have a sense, an intelligence that says there's energy in things, even though I can't see the energy. But if that energy were to stop flowing, were to be totally retracted back into the allness, which is Hashem Echad, then the sense of anything tangible would completely disappear.
I see. Thank you.
Rosa, your hand's up.
Yeah. So I was really thinking about this as we were learning it, that this opens up for me when, like, for instance, one of the things that you see here is that the word mamish is used a few times. Now, mamish means it's really so.
I can touch it. I can feel it.
So,
I mean, just
the
be
Rebbe
careful there.
saying
Wait. I
that
just want to say, be careful, because the other, which is not mamushes, is also really so. That's the energy. Is also really
mamish
so.
v'haruchnius hashofea olav, like the ruchnius that is pouring into something.
Yep.
The Alter Rebbe says that's mamish. We don't think
Yeah.
of that way. But
Exactly.
what I also got here is that we do not think of that the reality is a prayer. Reality is Tehillim. Reality is when you say a blessing. But if words is the reality, that everything is Devar Hashem, and Hashem gave us these words to say, there's
Good.
There's power in that.
Absolutely. Fire.
And there's this sweet story that I just, I mean, it could be that others have heard it also, but I just read it again, where actually in the battlefield there were 4 tanks that just stopped. They just, all of them stalled, and there was one person religious in the group, and his boy, whatever you want to call him, the sergeant, he said, you start praying, because we don't know how to get these tanks to go again, and we could be shot at any minute. And the from soldiers started praying, and they were able to fix the tanks.
That's called, in the words of our page, that's koyach hapoel benifol, the power of the spiritual in the physical, drawn in hamshachas through our avodah. Absolutely. Thank you. Elisheva, I think you got a hand up. Correct?
Yeah. The fact that Hashem gives life to everyone standing in front of you and speaking in front of you, even if that person is antagonizing you or, being negative, including on the worst extreme, is something to think about. If we think about that, the whole world was created for me, and so if the whole world is created for me and everything revolves around me, why did Hashem keep blowing life into, enemies or people that are triggering me?
They're also me's. And we know the answer to that. I mean, there's twofold answer to that. One, the enemy is there to be engaged with in order to bring out your powers. And the enemy is there to become megayired. Just as we said in the Yom Yom today, the Nefesh Bahamas has to be brought close, because there's big energy in there. And in fact, we learn in Chassidus that the energy of the animal soul sourced even higher than the energy of the godly soul. So those twofold things: one, to bring in your engagement with it, to bring out, how can I strike the nefesh elokis? How can I bring this person closer? How can I makar that person? And so the person becomes an agent for your doing mitzvahs.
I see it more as, how can I refine myself based on what this person is awakening in me?
Yeah, I mean, you see something in him or her that you don't want to see in yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because you can't really change other people, and it's not really, from what I understand, it's your job to change yourself and your own midos, because no one else could change your midos for you.
Well, that is true, but that's only half of the coin. What's the point of your changing your midos? Isn't for your spiritual exaltation and elevation. It's for the sake of changing the world.
Right, it's for the sake of channeling Hashem more easily and clearly.
Into the world.
Yeah.
Even into this person who's presenting him or herself in such a negative way.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting, is it? Yes, the least of it. Anybody else? All right, so I think that's a pretty clear bechain, knowing that each one of us is a representation of, as Rosa kind of read the words, koyach hapoel benifol. Each and every one of us is a power of actualization in something actualized. So let's take that power of actualization. To, as Elisheva says, actualize ourselves, of course, but for what purpose? To actualize and be part, at least, of the actualization of the presence of godliness in everything, which is ultimately the macro Geula Shlema. So we have the power to change the world, and it's invested in us. That's our nature. All right. Anybody else? How about another thing before we leave?
Thank you.
You're welcome. But anybody else?
You know, there was another story I saw about someone who he went to visit the soldiers, a religious boy who went to visit the soldiers, and then somebody challenged him and said, so
What happened?
Rosie, put yourself on mute.
there was this religious soldier and he said, how do you helping the war effort? They challenged him, and he said, with my prayers and my learning. And they said, well, that, you know, you're really making a difference. They challenged him further, and he said, I have a specific soldier I pray for. And the specific soldier he prayed for was a wounded soldier in the next bed. And they started talking, and it came out that the time that that soldier was wounded was when he came late to Seder.
Well, it definitely is all connected.
Yeah.
All right. See you tomorrow, Emir Hashem. Thank you.